challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. And it is Monday, 10 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States. And we are here. Christmas, no Christmas. We're always report for duty. And so anyway, an early Christmas greeting to all of our listeners and viewers. Hope this is going to be a wonderful week for those who celebrate Christmas. I dare say, not all of our listeners
but
celebrate Christmas.
Almost everybody celebrates something at this time of year. Okay,
that's true. That's very true.
It reminds me that whole Fox News fake, the war on Christmas was completely fabricated. There's nothing to it whatsoever. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with saying Happy Holidays. I think that's fine. Okay. Do you celebrate Christmas? Oh, okay, Merry Christmas. You don't. I mean, it's very intrusive. Okay, it's a holiday season. Everybody enjoy it. Don't put anybody on the spot. I find it very irritating. It's looking for a problem that doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah. Well,
I see you don't agree.
I don't agree. I did find that.
Well, we got started early.
Exactly. I found the whole, the war on Christmas meme annoying because Fox News ran with it, because Fox News is always picking on some easy target, low hanging fruit. Oh, great. Now, some crazy person in the university doing some crazy stuff. That's a very easy target. But I do find that sort of generic happy holidays kind of annoying. Christmas is a very special thing for Christians. Christians don't have that many holidays, that specifically celebrate their religion. Christmas and Easter are the ones, and so therefore, I think we should just respect Christians. That this is their holiest day of the year.
See, everybody, when George and I talk it out, we find agreement. That's what we do here. Okay. So what's on your mind, George?
Yeah, well, a few things. Following on from our discussion yesterday.
I want to continue with that because I have some amendments to make. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, you may be interested to learn that Tucker Carlson has been named Anti-Semite of the Year.
Wow.
And so here, what I have to show you, this is a story from today's New York Post. And here is, Tucker Carlson named Anti-Semite of the Year by prominent Jewish organization after alarming interviews.
Oh, wait, what prominent Jewish organization? Is that according to the New York Post, or is it self-proclaimed prominent Jewish organization?
Yes, quite so. And here says, podcaster Tucker Carlson was named Anti-Semite of the Year by prominent Jewish civil rights group. You keep waiting. Well, what is this prominent Jewish civil rights group for offering platforms to Jew haters and bashers on his show? Carlson's dubious distinction from Stop Anti-Semitism. So I've never heard of this.
Okay, is this the prominent Jewish group?
I think so, because
I wish they'd be more clear about this. Okay,
right. I've never heard of it, so I'm just going by the New York Post. So they say this dubious distinction from Stop Anti-Semitism. So I'm assuming that that's the extraordinarily prominent.
I know of this organization, and they're involved in all kinds of litigation. It's very difficult to serve these people because they move around. Okay. They're obviously Slur Incorporated. Okay.
Right. So Stop Anti-Semitism comes as fallout from the friendly October interview with white nationalist Nick Fuentes. So they're still talking about Nick Fuentes, who has pushed conspiracy theories about Jewish control of U.S. politics, media, and finance, denied the Holocaust, and called for what he described as a holy war against Jews. By an overwhelming vote margin, Tucker Carlson has been named the Stop Anti-Semitism 2025 Anti-Semite of the Year. Stop Anti-Semitism's founder and executive director, Leora Reyes, told the Post.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So, and then she goes on. Carlson's divisive, hateful, and dangerous rhetoric and his repeated glowing interviews with bigots and Hitler apologists have made him the most reviled Jew hater over the last 12 months.
According to her. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Carlson's interview with Fuentes drew controversy from the start, with the white nationalist telling his host he was a fan of Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, who promoted policies that discriminated against Jews.
And
And
Stalin did a lot of stuff. Okay.
he
I
did,
mean,
he did a lot of stuff, and yeah, and you know the Jewish thing, they always completely mischaracterize Stalin's policy towards the Jews, and indeed his Soviet policy towards the Jews. This is typical of this lazy neocon thinking in the West. Carlson himself slammed Christian Zionists for supporting Israel, saying they had been seized by this brain virus during his chat, singling out former President George W. Bush, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, and U.S. Senator Ted Cruz.
I bet
So, yeah,
Tucker's really shaking in his boots over that one. Huh? Who
yes,
cares?
that's right. It's right.
Okay.
Whenever they give out these awards, you always think, "Damn, why didn't I get that?" I wish I could have got that award. I mean,
And the real independent media lane podcasters, they all say exactly the same. Why didn't you pick me? Why couldn't I have been on
me,
that?
exactly.
It's,
Me, me, me.
that's
I
complete
do as
opposite.
much as anyone to foster anti-Semitism.
And it's this whole agenda and approach creates the opposite, and people are proud. Okay, I mean, for those of you watching the Do Dissidents guys, both Jewish, okay, and they were griping that why didn't they pick me? Well, maybe they'll pick me next year. Okay, and apparently this hokey or organization, you can you can't be in the running. For next year, Tucker won't be in the running because he's already got it. Okay, so I think
That's
Candace
yeah,
Owen, was it Candace Owens that got it last year?
probably. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
about right.
certainly she was on the list at one point in time. So I mean, this is just the whole mockery. Okay, Nick Fuentes, he is a remarkable communicator, and he's followed by a lot of people. I didn't think it was a softball interview. I thought there was some actually
No,
interesting points made. Okay,
exactly. Yes,
he's not my cup of tea, and I'm not his cup of tea. He hates boomers. Okay.
yes, yes. Yeah, I thought so. It's that Tucker Carlson has a particular style of interviewing, and people then assume, oh, then therefore he is, therefore he's a being soft on his interviewees, but he's not, and he raised a lot of issues with him, which I don't think he answered particularly well, and I think
I
that
agree.
it was telling that he didn't answer the questions particularly well.
And well,
So they keep repeating,
juxtapose,
"Oh, he was it was softball interview. It's nothing of the sort."
if you
Yep.
juxtapose Tucker's interview with the one that Piers Morgan gave, you could tell that was such an interesting interview because Piers Morgan showed himself to be a very mediocre, intelligent person. I mean, he's in the 90, like 90 IQ points. 86. That's basically functional. Okay, and Nick Fuentes just drew circles around him and mocked him endlessly. And apparently, I guess the next day, somebody said, Piers, he made a fool out of you. Okay, and he didn't even realize it in real time. Okay, he look, the more you want to, don't platform and all, the more you do it, you pump up these people. Okay. I'm not particularly worried about Nick Fuentes at all. Okay. He has his own brand. He's out there like everybody else. This is the name of the game. George and I don't play it because we will say things that are intensely unpopular with people. And I'll just say, I don't care. Okay. That's how I think. All right.
Right. No,
It's Fuentes, Piers Morgan. These guys are hucksters. Okay, they're looking for the angle. Okay, that's the job description. Okay,
no,
I'm not doing it disparaging. I'm not saying this disparagingly. Actually, I'm saying that's the job.
that's the job. And Candace Owens is exactly the same. She knows what she's doing. I mean, I think she's a grifter. I think she knows exactly how to get the eyeballs, the clicks, to get to talked about. Very good at it, and she's always been good at it. She's again very young, and she started really young, and she's always known how to do it. But she's a grifter. I think she doesn't deliver. But she gets people talking about her, and that's
There was an interesting tell is apparently when she had her secret 4-hour secret meeting with Erica Kirk, and I think she did really let this be known when she was revealing what happened. You know what Turning Point USA's biggest problem is with Candace? Not her conspiracy theories or whatever, is don't tell people not to fund us. Isn't that tells you everything you need to know? I mean, we can go at it, cats and dogs, because we're getting eyeballs, we're getting excitement, everyone's talking about us, but don't fund us. That's the taboo.
That's it. Yeah. Now, again, following on from our conversation, because we were talking about JD Vance.
Okay, good. You're reading my mind. How can you do this so far away? Because I that's one of the amendments I want to make. Go ahead.
Yes. So today, the Washington Post weighs in because obviously they were watching us and they decided we need to address this issue. I mean, the Gaggle has beaten us to it, so we need to do something. So they've got two articles, big, right at the top articles, and the first is saying Ted Cruz is planning to throw his hat into the ring, and as and as
I don't know who. I've heard it's Tel Aviv Levin and it's Tel Aviv Cruz. Who gets the moniker?
Yes.
I need to know. Okay.
Well, I think they both. It works both because Tel Aviv Levin works smoothly, and Tel Aviv Ted also works. So they both work. Just like Levin's thing of Qatar Alson doesn't work because it's very hard.
I can't even say it. I can't
You
even
can't say it, so it doesn't work. You've got to come up with a clever moniker. This is what Trump is always very good at. He comes up with a clever moniker, but Qatar Alson, which you can't say. So that's
my favorite one was Pocahontas. That's the winner.
Pocahontas was good. But the one I like the one that sank Jeb Bush. Remember right at the beginning in 2015, low energy Jeb. I mean, boom, that's it. He never recovered from that.
And every time you see him, he's low energy. It works. It sticks with you.
Yeah. But yeah, Pocahontas was great. She also never really recovered from that. But anyway, here's the Washington Post story, which says here that Ted Cruz weighs in other presidential run, setting up clash with Vance, and then he has feuded with Tucker Carlson and privately criticized the vice president, promoting traditional GOP foreign policies while warning against the threat of anti-Semitism in his party.
That's for me. That's a stillborn run already. Okay.
Well,
I mean, come on, Ted, read the room. Okay.
Well, I think so, and I think that even though the Washington Post obviously is no great fan of J.D. Vance or the Republican Party, is more or less hinting in this article that forget it. I mean, it ain't gonna happen. So, with the future of the party up for grabs in a Donald Trump-less 2028 primary, Cruz has in recent months positioned himself as a loud voice for a more traditional, hawkish Republican foreign policy.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, we want it.
I have the brain of cork.
That's right. He's also urging the GOP to rid itself of popular MAGA pundit Tucker Carlson, whom he argues is injecting the poison of anti-Semitism in the movement with his broadsides against Israel.
Yeah.
Carl rejected that characterization.
Yeah, I would venture to say that Ted Cruz is the poison, but
I
I'm
would have thought
saying the
so.
obvious.
That's right. But that's what's so interesting, that um, what he's doing here is sort of saying that, oh well, we'll do the traditional Republican Party. They've been doing this. They've been running with this kind of Reaganism ever since Reagan, and it hasn't never worked for them. I mean, how many times are you going to do this? And it
And
never works for Republicans.
and you keep in mind, everyone, George is absolutely right. And if there's the appearance of its victory, is because the Democrats put up the worst possible Hillary Clinton. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, no one likes her. No
No,
one likes her.
no,
Okay,
no,
no
no,
one liked Joe Biden.
no,
Okay,
no, no.
I don't even think Hunter liked him very much. Okay, actually, this is a sidebar, but a really important one, and I really want your take on this. I think that Joe Biden's son should run for president because I have watched his interviews, and this guy is raw. Okay, I don't agree with anything he has to say, but his delivery, he understands the new politics right now. Hunter understands it. Okay,
Right,
and he's
right.
angry. All right, and
Yes,
he defends his father, but he goes the way he goes after other Democrats and of course
right,
Republicans. It's
right,
amazing. No
right.
Democrat talks like that. Not one.
No,
Take a
no.
look at some of his interviews.
Yes, I have, and I agree. But the problem with is I don't know. Do you think people will go for somebody who, when he speaks, every other word is the F word? I mean,
Yeah, I think people will now. I think they will. I'm sorry. Yep, I think they will because that's what people feel. I said everybody feels. More and more people feel that way. Okay, and I say this partly in jest, but I also say he understands the Geist. Okay, I think he really does. I really believe that.
yeah. No, I think so. Um,
I mean,
uh,
anyway, going back to the
yes,
post.
yes, but I think so. They're doing this whole thing with the this Reaganite foreign policy, and you know, I mean, what you do when you do that for the Republicans, it's just easy pickings for any Democrat with any brains. But of course, they don't always have brains. But then when Obama famously humiliated Mitt Romney with, "Hey, the 1980s are calling; they want their foreign policy back." Romney was just so sat there, stupefied, and was unable to respond because, of course, Romney was a complete fool. I mean, he was trying to suggest that Obama was somehow soft on Russia. Obama was somehow soft on Islam. He was soft on jihadis. And of course, that was just easy. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. Accuse me of being
Yeah,
all these people.
Obama soft on jihadis. I mean, Obama, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, but he had a 8-year spree of bombing brown people and
Right.
Muslims.
That's
Soft
right.
on? Oh,
That's right.
come on,
That's
really?
yeah.
Well, it's interesting how Mitt Romney tried to capitalize on Russiagate. He tried to capitalize on a hoax, saying,
Yeah.
"See, I told you." And
That's right. You
oh,
did. You did.
he was a visionary. He was a visionary. Okay, no, that was APAC saying that. That was the defense contractors. Lindsey Graham, Lady Graham said that. Okay,
Right.
he
Right.
was a visionary. Remember that? And
Yep.
that's
Yep.
when you feel so repulsed that he's capitalizing on a hoax.
Yes, that's right. That's it. That's exactly what he was. And Fox News was kind of promoting him and saying, "Well, see, he was so ahead of his time. He said in 2012 about the Russia's our greatest geopolitical adversary. He was far ahead of his time."
I can see Sean Hannity saying that right now.
Um, anyway, so let's just go on a little bit more with this Washington Post story, which, as I say, even the Washington Post doesn't seem convinced that his future is particularly bright. And it says here then, yeah, yeah, as he feuds with Carlson, waiting a second. According to President Trump, a White House run would be politically risky for Cruz, putting him on a course to collide with Vice President J.D. Vance, who many Republicans expect to enter the 2028 race. And then friction is already evident behind the scenes. Cruz has criticized Vance, a close ally of Carlson, to Republican donors, according to two people familiar with the comments. The senator has warned that Vance's foreign policy views are dangerously isolationist.
Oh, come on. God, this.
Vance has been one of the GOP's most prominent skeptics of U.S. intervention abroad.
That
And of
doesn't make you an isolationist.
course it doesn't.
See, this is a false binary.
Right.
Again, this is very dishonest.
And what you say also about the isolationists from the bygone era before World War II, they were not isolationists. They just were against getting involved in other people's wars. But they absolutely believed in an activist foreign policy. They just said, hey, a war on the European continent doesn't affect us. We don't need to get involved in this a second time, since they were very dissatisfied with the outcome of the First World War.
Go look through the pages of the main broadsheets in the 1920s and early 30s. Today, in retrospect, they call it isolationist. They weren't. They're just saying, why did we fight in the First World War? Why did we go to Europe? Why did we lose those men? That was a very, very strong sentiment. You know why, George? Because it was right.
Because it was correct.
It's correct.
It was correct. And Wilson had lied to the public in the 1916 elections that he would stay out of the war in order to win the election. Of course, he got into the war right away, as did FDR. He also lied to the American public in 1940 to win the election, and then, of course, he got into the war. The 41-year-old vice president leads early polls and is seen as a loyal lieutenant to Trump, who maintains high support from the party base, even as the president's approval ratings have plummeted. But Trump has been non-committal about endorsing his running mate as heir to Make America Great Again movement, leaving an opening for an ambitious conservative with a different vision for the party. And I think it's interesting how Cruz is now the sort of the traditionalist, where people remember him. I think he was elected in 2010. He was the firebrand, always annoying Mitch McConnell, the leader of the party in the Senate. But now we want to go back to this traditionalism, and we want to. And what is this? We got to stand with Israel. That's where he's going.
That's a winning ticket. Jeez.
Yeah. So that was the Washington Post on Ted Cruz. But then the Washington Post also wrote an article about J.D. Vance, but the Vance thing is interesting because Vance, they keep going to him. Hey, what's your take on anti-Semitism? Hey, what's your take on all these anti-Semites running around in the Republican Party? Don't you think they should be kicked out of the party? They're always asking him these questions. In the way journalists always do, like, when did you stop beating your wife? And he's always, and he has said, no, I don't think there are anti-Semites running around within the Republican Party. So here was this was a few days ago, where he sent out this tweet. Mainstream journalism is just profoundly uninteresting and lame, consumed by its own parties. To write about a generational divide in anti-Semitism without discussing the demographics of the various generations is mind-boggling. I mean, it was basically, another one of these polls. He's referring to a poll suggesting that anti-Semitism is on the rise among the younger generation, where he's saying, hey, among which group, which ethnic group, which religious denomination is anti-Semitism?
Yeah, but also,
on the rise?
I think we all should be very, very cautious here. You can write a poll that can generate, if you conflate being against Israel and its behavior
Right.
and anti-Semitism, you're going to get that result.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
and so you have to be very, very
Yeah,
careful when you're,
of course.
unless you intentionally want to blur it, and I think people do.
And
Okay,
people absolutely do. That's the whole point of doing these polls. You're always confounding two separate issues, and this is done deliberately. And of course, the champions of Israel, that's exactly what they want to do. And you have to say, in in many ways, they have succeeded by doing this. In other words, I mean, it used to be that you couldn't quite do that. You couldn't pull that off. That, oh, you just simply, well, you don't like, you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Now it's, oh, well, anti-Semitism this, anti-Semitism that, and they talk about, oh, this anti-Semitism running rampant at the university campuses. People just say these things. Oh, there's anti-Semitic. Well, they got everything they say because there are demonstrations, protests about Israel. But now you can say it. I mean, look, Laura Ingram would always say, yeah, of course, this anti-Semitism is running rampant on university campuses.
yeah, and how many of those protesters on campus were Jewish?
Right, exactly. But he says here that it talks about the first about the demographics, and then of course he makes the point. I would say there's a difference between not liking Israel or disagreeing with a given Israeli policy and anti-Semitism.
That's
Uh,
anti-Semitic.
that's even to say that is anti-Semitic. Um, And then here, this is an NBC story. Vance says anti-Semitism isn't exploding on the right. And it says, and then here they're quoting him. Do I think that the Republican Party is substantially more anti-Semitic than it was 10 or 15 years ago? Absolutely not, Vance said. In any bunch of apples, you have bad people. But my attitude on this is we should be firm in saying anti-Semitism and racism is wrong. I think it's slanderous to say that the Republican Party, the conservative movement, is extremely anti-Semitic. And then he goes on. Vance offered the comments, his first on the subject, since Cruz began raising it during an interview inside his West Wing office, wading into an issue that has roiled the party in recent weeks amid a broader focus on anti-Semitism by the Trump administration. I don't understand even the sentence. This is so badly written and confusingly, because amid a broader focus on anti-Semitism by the Trump administration. Well, what does that mean? I don't. Um, and then here is the story today in the Washington Post. J.D. Vance is walking a tightrope on raging Israel debate within MAGA.
I think that is so. I vehemently disagree with that. J.D. Vance is playing a very smart game on this. It's not a tightrope, and because he sees where if he's going to get the nomination, who's going to give it to him? MAGA, okay?
Right. Right.
And he's got his eye on the ball. Ted Cruz is despised by MAGA.
He is.
It's ridiculous. More Democrats will vote for Cruz.
Right.
I mean, it's just absurd on its face.
Yes. Yes. And then it says in his speech to Turning Point USA's year-end conference on Sunday, Vice President Vance never uttered the word that has been tearing the MAGA base apart, Israel. And Vance has come under mounting pressure in recent weeks to condemn and bar from the conservative movement Nick Fuentes, a young podcaster who peddles white supremacist views and anti-Semitic tropes.
But he's not in the conservative movement.
No, he's not. And he's never.
He's an individual that is remarkably talented in communicating, but he's not in the conservative movement.
No, he's not, and he has no connection with Turning Point. I mean, it's like he's never had any connection with Turning Point USA. But this is what they always do. They have to pick on somebody and make Nick Fuentes is the sort of central figure of everything. And this is done deliberately because, hey, they might keep Nick Fuentes. Oh, he said this about Hitler, said this about Stalin, and then you just make everything. They used to do this with David Duke, but David Duke is now quite old, and everyone's already kind of forgotten about him. But it's always this, the thing with Republicans. Hey, do you condemn David Duke? Well, who's David Duke? Oh, well, yeah, but do you condemn him? Oh, yeah, sure. I count me in. I condemn him. And they would do that. Trump would always be asked, particularly in 2016, do you condemn David Duke? And then he says, I don't know who David Duke is. And then, of course, the media were, oh, he's lying, he's covering his
He
tracks. He
probably
knows
didn't
perfectly well
know.
what David Duke is.
He probably didn't know.
He probably didn't know. And he has some vague recollection. I mean, but why
Yeah,
would you? It's not like he's in the news all the
I
time.
mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Knowing what we know about Trump, he would say, "Did he develop something? What city? Maybe I know him." And that's what he would. That's how he thinks.
Right.
Yeah. I believe. When he said he didn't know him, I believe that
Oh,
actually.
because why would he? I mean, there's no reason, but it's a way of so now they put Nick Fuentes front and center, and then they associate Nick Fuentes with Tucker Carlson. They say, oh look, he's so because he interviewed him. That's all. That's the only. Oh, he interviewed him, and apparently,
Well,
what he's supposed to have punched him in the face, or what was he supposed to?
I don't. Maybe I shouldn't actually say this, but I really don't know any mainstream Democrat podcaster. Why don't they interview Nick Fuentes? Do you have the courage? Do you have the power of argument? Go up against him. That's my position. George and I are always saying this here. Nick Fuentes, he's the flavor of the month, maybe the flavor of the year. Okay, debate him. Okay, and then see how the chips fall. Are you a better debater? Okay.
Right.
Because you could say all you want about Nick Fuentes. He's well read. Okay, he's not a fraud in that sense. Okay, he's well read. The conclusions he draws, well, that's another question.
Yes. But it's a way of smearing, and of course that's why why the Washington Post wants to craft these articles. Whoa, Nick Fuentes is really at the heart of the conservative movement, even though he has nothing to do with conservatives. He's never had anything to do with conservatism. And Tucker Carlson never suggested hey Nick, you're at the heart of the conservative movement. How do you enjoy being that? Anyway, the article goes on that he's needs to somehow mounting pressure to condemn and bar. No, you're supposed to bar someone. Why would you need to bar anyone? White supremacy, anti-Semitic tropes, underscoring the Republican Party's divisions over the rise of fringe activists who were barely known by the public until recently.
These divisions would exist even without Nick Fuentes. Okay, everyone, he's not a catalyst for anything.
Right? No. Some conservatives have also pushed for Vance to rebuke his longtime friend Tucker Carlson, who hosted Fuentes on a show, and whose calls for the U.S. to reevaluate its support for the state of Israel have helped fuel a raging fight among President Donald Trump's staunch.
George, this is a completely fraudulent construct here. Why are we talking about this? See, they want to see. That's how they want to define the political environment. I don't give a hoot, okay, what Nick Fuentes says about Israel. I just don't, okay?
Right.
All right. This is how everyone. This is propaganda at its best, because you sucked all the air out of the room, and they make you talk about a construct that is artificially put together and say this is what it all means. It doesn't mean this, okay?
Right.
Okay. Ted Cruz is a huge recipient of AIPAC money and other lobbyists. Okay, he's their front man. Okay, right? And he's going to throw his hat in. He knows he's going to have financial backing. Okay. But as George and I have reminded our viewers over and over again, money is very important in elections, but it's not always determinative.
No, absolutely not. You're absolutely right. Ted Cruz will have a lot of money. Obviously, all of that. AIPAC and all of the Israel lobby money, all of the Bill Ackmans and the rest of Paul Singer and all of those people. They're going to back Ted Cruz. You're absolutely right. That isn't sufficient. However, you're beginning to sense, though, how this election campaign is going to play out, because the campaign is going to start quite soon. And already they're getting their ducks in a row. What are they going to do? How are they going to target Vance? They're going to talk about Israel.
Can you smell the desperation in the air, George? I
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
desperation.
Right.
Okay, what they want is someone like Ted Cruz. Like, I mean, this guy has got he's as charismatic as a lamp. Okay, I mean, he's a very smart guy. I've actually read some of the stuff that he's written, legal stuff. It's good. It's very, very solid. Okay, but he just doesn't have any charisma.
No,
Okay,
no,
and going to the usual pieties of a interventionist foreign policy and supporting Israel because it's in the Bible somewhere. I'm sorry, that's yesterday's snow.
yes. He also, well, that's a very interesting one because he didn't do very well in that debate with Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson has become quite religious now, and he actually
Yes,
reads the Bible all the time. You know, you
he's
wouldn't have thought
reading the Bible all of
he
the
is.
time.
Oh, yeah, exactly all the time. So when he said, ask him to quote where we're supposed to love Israel, where does it say that? He couldn't name the part of the Bible where it actually said that. And of course, he asked him, but the Israel that is talked about in the Old Testament, what does that got to do with modern Israel? I mean, you're saying that's the same thing. It's a continuation of that state.
I
But
mean, is it in
it's
the
a very
Bible?
dubious argument.
The state of Israel?
Right.
Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Exactly. So that ever since that debate, I mean, Cruz has been gunning for Tucker Carlson. I mean, he's
Yeah, but
always
he's losing. He's losing. That's why he has to inject himself into this. And he's got we have to remember, everyone, the GOP doesn't like Trump. It doesn't like Tucker. Doesn't like Steve Bannon.
no,
Okay. I mean, so again, you're creating these false binaries.
right,
Okay,
right,
Ted Cruz, he'll hate anyone to get what he wants. Okay,
right,
and up until about 15 minutes ago, you can never be too pro-Israel, and he has that mindset. It's
right.
never bad.
No,
Okay,
no,
no, he better think twice. Okay,
that's
that's
right.
why he can't read the room. These people cannot read the room. George and I showed that young kid asking about the USS Liberty.
Right.
That's what people are getting into right now.
That's
Okay, and
exactly.
and although it was a mistake, they apologize. No. That's not the history. And you know what? Young people, when they hear Ben Shapiro's reaction, they all look at him and say, "You're lying again."
Yeah, yeah, that's right, and that's really the point, and that's it gets to this issue: is it America first or it's Israel first? And that's now been stated explicitly at these events, these turning point events, because these people, that's MAGA, that's your core support. It means these are the people who are going to go out and work for a candidate. Those are the people you need. Because they're the ones who are actually going to get an election done. Because the people are just like, I don't care. They're going to stay home, but then also worse than not even voting, they're not going to do any work, any party work, any organizational work, which you absolutely need in order to win an election.
And that's why what we saw, I don't know, was it a 3 or 4 day event, Turning Point
That
USA?
was a 3 day event.
Maybe a lot of people really weren't aware of Turning Point USA. Yeah, this is a kind of charismatic young guy. This is probably the most important election machine in America,
Right,
not the Republican Party,
right,
not the Democratic Party.
right,
Okay, this
right,
has been by design, in my opinion. This was a machine that was built. Okay,
right,
and
right,
Charlie Kirk, charismatic. I didn't find him charismatic. Okay, but a lot of other people did, and these are the foot soldiers
yeah,
of the members of the powerful members of the conservative movement want to capture Turning
right.
Point because that's going to be their grunts. Okay,
That's right.
those are
That's right.
guys who be in the trenches, and I say guys. Okay,
Right, right. No, that's right. And it's clear that Israel lobby, the Bill Ackman and all of those people, there was a reason why they applied this kind of pressure against Charlie Kirk. I mean, it's not like, he's allowing, Tucker Carlson at his. Why were they so agitated about this? Why did that matter to them so much? Because, hey, you're affecting young people. Like exactly with that young kid who came up and asked that questions. And the question is it America first or is it Israel first? Don't give us the whole, oh well, because America and Israel, even to ask that question is anti-Semitic. Don't give. And
It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work. That's
it
why
is
we're starting out here. Tucker Carlson is the anti-Semite of the year. 5 years ago, that would have been impactful.
right,
Today, it's like, no, the joke is on you people now because we don't believe you anymore.
right. That's right. And just a little more from this article. And here we have this. Um, so far in the interim MAGA war, Vance is treading cautiously. Trump has also stayed out of the fray lately, but some prominent conservative leaders who support Israel have criticized Vance and not Trump for failing to speak out against what they say is openly anti-Semitic rhetoric. And then again, they bring up Fuentes. Meanwhile, Vance's restraint hasn't stopped Fuentes and his followers. And notice the way the slimy thing is that, well, what? So what? What's that got to do with Vance? I mean, it's like, well, it's not like Fuentes is sort of hanging out at these conservative or Republican events. He wasn't there. He wasn't a speaker. He wasn't invited. But but that isn't stopping Fuentes. Well, you can't stop Fuentes other than imprisoning him. I mean, is that what you're advocating? Well, that you just imprison him.
Well,
And
and Fuentes is not in the Republican Party, so why
no,
would Vance try to restrain someone that isn't in the
it is
party?
exactly.
How could he?
That's right. And then Vance's allies say he's balancing a desire to keep in the fold young Republicans who are increasingly concerned about how much military aid the United States provides to Israel, while still embracing the Jewish state as a strategic U.S. partner in the Middle East.
Well, talk about a tightrope. Look at that sentence there. Oh,
Yes.
that's see, this is why journalism is propaganda. Okay,
Right.
this is propaganda.
Right. That's right. That's right. But notice how they present the Jewish state as a strategic U.S. partner. Says who exactly? I mean, you throw these terms out, and so well, of course it's a strategic U.S. partner. Um, but it is a very interesting way in which the battle lines are going to be drawn. This is how they're going to play this. The
Yeah, but
upcoming.
George, the more they play this um, um, uh, propaganda ploy of looking for anti-Semitism, you're only going to disaffect more and more people because people are going to say, "I'm not anti-Semitic. I don't know why." What is young people are making this connection, saying, "What does this have to do with
That's right.
Israel and anti-Semitism?" It has nothing to do with each other. Okay,
That's right. That's right.
America first is what it means. America first. That's
That's
how
right.
they're going to do it, and correctly so.
That's right. So there was a kind of an interesting um, event at the Turning Point conference, which was the contribution of Tulsi Gabbard. And there was a report, a Reuters report, over the weekend, saying that the U.S. intelligence has concluded that Russian intends to take all of Ukraine, the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel, and some parts of the Soviet Empire, using that very term. So here was this Reuters article, and then we can talk about how Tulsi responded to this article. So here it is. U.S. intelligence indicates Putin's war aims in Ukraine are unchanged. And well, you don't need U.S. intelligence to say that. I mean, Putin says that I spelled out our aims in my in my speech at the Russian Foreign Ministry in June of 2024. I mean, he said it during the news conference on Friday. So I don't know why you need I don't know.
I checked the
Multi-billion
Kremlin.
dollar intelligence agency to tell you that.
You don't need the intelligence agency to go to the Kremlin.ru, and all of his speeches are there and translated in perfect English.
That's right. It says UN's intelligence report continued to warn that Russian President Vladimir Putin has not abandoned his aims of capturing all of Ukraine and reclaiming parts of Europe that belonged to the former Soviet Empire. Notice how they this is Reuters that uses, they don't put Soviet Empire in quotes or anything like that. They just put that in there as if that's a given. Everyone knows what you're talking about when you say Soviet Empire. 6 sources familiar with U.S. intelligence said, and then it says the reports present a starkly different picture from that painted by U.S. President Donald Trump and his Ukraine peace negotiators, who have said Putin wants to end the conflict. And then and it says the intelligence also contradicts the Russian leader's denials that he's a threat to Europe. The U.S. findings have been consistent since Putin launched his full-scale invasion in 2022, and they largely align with the views of European leaders and spy agencies that he covets all of Ukraine and territories of former Soviet bloc states, including members of the NATO alliance. So that's their claim. Is this? But they don't cite what report, who is this CIA finding? Is this the ODNI finding? Who has made this claim? They just say, "Oh, we have 6 sources," but they're all unidentified.
Since when is Reuters an opinion outlet?
Right.
This is an op-ed. This is not.
This is exactly. That's right. And then so Tulsi Gabbard sent out this tweet about this Reuters story. No, this is a lie and propaganda. Reuters is willingly pushing on behalf of warmongers who want to undermine President Trump's tireless efforts to end this bloody war that has resulted in more than 1 million casualties on both sides. Dangerously, you are promoting this false narrative to block President Trump's peace effort and fomenting hysteria and fear among the people to get them to support the escalation of war, which is what NATO and the EU really want, in order to pull the United States military directly into war with Russia.
Yeah, and she's not a podcaster, folks, okay?
That's right, exactly. And it says, the truth is the U.S. intelligence community has briefed policymakers, including the Democrat and the House Permanent Subcommittee on Intelligence member quoted by Reuters, that U.S. intelligence assesses that Russia seeks to avoid a larger war with NATO. It also assesses that, as the last few years have shown, Russia's battlefield performance indicates that it does not currently have the capability to conquer and occupy all of Ukraine, let alone Europe. Now, she then also appeared at the AmFest, and it's just worth taking a look at just what she said there. So here she's speaking.
Understood then, as we do now, that too often we, the American people, are told we must choose between liberty or security. And which side often wins out in that proposition? Liberty loses. And the warmongers claim that they are doing what they are doing for the sake of our security. It's a lie. Eisenhower issued this warning because he understood the power of the influence of the military-industrial complex and how those who seek to keep us in a persistent state of war deny the heavy costs that it takes in human lives, in taxpayer dollars, and in the erosion of our liberties. Wars that have nothing to do with ensuring our security or our liberty.
I don't know, George. Reintroducing Tulsi?
Well, it's
a lot of her. We haven't seen a lot.
Yeah.
Now, this is something that we're dealing with right now in real time. As you know, President Trump has been persistently and relentlessly pursuing a peace deal to finally end the war between Russia and Ukraine. He talks frequently about the need to end the killing and the bloodshed, and his teams are negotiating now as we gather here. But what I've seen over these months is that every time they make progress and they move closer and closer to that hope for peace, the warmongers in the deep state step up and try to do everything they can to stop them.
It's amazing.
They use the same old tactics that they've always used. The deep state within the intelligence community weaponizes intelligence to try to undermine progress. They leak it to their friends in the mainstream propaganda media to try to spread this and push a false narrative. They foment fear and hysteria as a way to justify.
I'm a co-host on the Gaggle.
Yes, I think so. I think, that's right. But I mean, you were saying NATO and how many times have we said that? NATO and the EU are trying to drag the United States into a shooting war with Russia. We say it all the time. And she said that in that tweet.
War and their efforts to undermine President Trump's efforts towards peace. And do so specifically in this case in order to try to pull the U.S. military into a direct conflict with Russia, which is ultimately what the EU and NATO want. We cannot allow this.
I feel like she's plagiarized us. I'm sorry.
What's happening before our very eyes.
No, I think so. Yes,
in this
yes,
cause
absolutely.
Of peace.
All right. And that's it. So I think she is a plagiarist. I think she's been watching this and they said, yeah, well, but right, taking notes.
She has charisma. She's got the voice. She's got the delivery. She's got it all going for her. It's just that I suppose she lives in a world where she's just crushed all of the time.
Right. That's right. Now, I should say that when she made this, she sent out that tweet and then she made that speech at Turning Point. That generated enormous attacks. I mean, she's been relentlessly attacked on Twitter. Oh my God, this is a woman who's in the, she's working for Putin. The person who's head of intelligence is working for Putin.
Manchurian candidate. Oh my God.
That's right. They've all been going complete meltdown, and one of the characters doing this meltdown is this guy Andrew Neil, who is one of these Murdoch hacks, former editor of the Sunday Times, The Spectator, and everything else, and he was the founder of GB News. It's terrifying that somebody with such bonkers views is at the heart of the Trump government. Bonkers.
Now, what's bonkers about it is that she says the truth. That's because, we don't expect the truth from any of these people at all. All we expect is spin. Some do it better than others. But what's bonkers is that she said the truth.
That's right. That's right.
And this is empirically verifiable.
Right. Exactly. That's right. And that you're absolutely right, because that's what it always gets people when you say something like that. You basically you're not allowed to say anything. That's right. Oh, she's bonkers. Now, speaking of bonkers, there was an article in the Express today claiming that the Russians are resorting to cannibalism.
I saw that.
So let's take a look at this article. Express.
My God! Oh. I found that on Telegram today, and I was in the city, and I just thought, what?
So this is the Express, and Putin's desperate troops so short of food they're eating each other in Ukraine. So apparently, just before they're unleashing these hordes onto Europe to get to the English Channel, they don't even have enough food to feed them. So I don't, that's
again, everyone, this is what we're asked to believe. But the Express is very extreme. But they're within the paradigm is that you cannot have Keystone cops and 007 at the same time. But they're demanding that you believe both
You have to
simultaneously.
exactly. You have to believe both. And you think, well, gee, I wonder where they're getting this information from. This is fascinating. A radio intercept shows Vladimir Putin's starving troops, revealing how they are resorting to cannibalism. The claim comes from Ukraine's GUR military intelligence. Oh, well, that's a reliable source. So that's where I get my
Wait,
information
I'm sure it was MI6 whispered in their ear. How about trying this one? Yeah.
Let's try this one. We'll get some mileage from the media because everyone's going to publish that. I mean, cannibalism. Due to a lack of food, the occupiers are sharpening their knives and preparing to eat their younger comrades. Sharpening their knives. And then an intercept reportedly recorded a Russian saying, "We'll eat each other. It's all, whatever up here. We're already looking for someone younger. I've sharpened my knives. I don't give a whatever who I have to cut up. I just want to eat and bomb everyone else." And then the GUR said cannibalism is becoming a common practice among Russian soldiers. In June this year, it became known that a serviceman in the 68th Motor Rifle Division, the Russian Armed Forces, had been eating his comrade for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I wonder, yeah, okay. Well, so June. How did they store the body? I mean, body kind of goes off in June. I mean, do they have refrigerators? On the front lines. They keep to be able to keep things cool. In a message to Putin's hungry troops, the Ukrainians said, "The main intelligence director of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine reminds you that Russian prisoners of war in Ukraine are fed 3 times a day. They were given instructions on how to safely surrender." So that's in the Daily Express. I remember there was, some years ago, there was a cartoon in Private Eye, the satirical English magazine. There was a cartoon, somebody sort of has a Daily Express, in his hands. They go, flick, 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 flick. And then he rushes to the telephone. "Hey, Guinness Book of Records, I just finished the Daily Express in 2.5 seconds. Is that a world record?" "No, it is not." Click.
Oh my god! I didn't. I don't even know how to react to something so absurd. Okay, one thing, just to be kind of nerdy about it, everyone. If you look at Russian war efforts, we can look at the fighting Napoleon and the Grand Army and fighting the Wehrmacht. One thing the Russians are really good at is logistics.
Right.
They're good at it.
Right.
And that's how you win wars, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're very, very meticulous about it. Nobody starves.
Yes.
I mean, you might be brutalized in a Russian army. Yeah, it probably happens, okay? You're not going to starve, okay?
Yes. Yes. I don't remember there was ever any talk during World War II of cannibalism.
There were some cases during the blockade in Leningrad.
Well, but I mean, if that was the case, I would assume that was people who had already died that they ate. I mean, I don't think they killed anyone for
look. I mean, it's one of the far out taboos to talk about, but it's been suggested that it's part of the lore of the blockade. I haven't seen any of the evidence myself, but certainly during the Red Army, I've never heard anything like that.
I know the Red Army, but I can understand if people died. And of course, people were dying, in great numbers during the siege of Leningrad. That they dead bodies, and if there's nothing else to eat, that they might eat people who had died. I don't know, but I can understand that.
They had been frozen during the winter.
Right, yeah. Exactly. But I what this is suggesting is that they're kind of killing. They're sharpening their knives. I mean, I'm assuming they're sharpening their knives.
Well, I mean,
kill somebody.
What is it? Okay, so they're sharpening their knives to start eating. Okay, I mean, it's so suggestive. Okay, so you're going to kill someone with an. I mean, you're a trained killer. Why don't you shoot someone?
Right.
I mean,
yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
One other, I guess, I don't know, an interesting article that appeared is from El País in Spain, because you have to get Anglo-Saxon press, you don't really get anything interesting, is that Ukraine is really coming under quite a lot of pressure from European countries. You've got to take these young men back, not just because they're costing us money, but they got to be on the front line. We've got to shove them on the front line. We're giving you all this money. We're just giving you 90 billion, and particularly the Germans. Hey, we're going to be on the hook for that 90 billion, and we're just giving you. Get these people onto the front line. They're young men. They're young, healthy, fit men. They need to be there. So, but
Well,
I love proxy wars. I love it when
I had
you're using somebody else's cannon fodder.
on my program, I recently had a guest, an American who is living in Morocco right now, and he says that it's very annoying to the local population with these Ukrainians and their Lamborghinis.
Yeah, no, that's right. And they're not. I mean, you come across them here in Budapest. They're very unlikable. They're very arrogant, very rude. Because obviously, I mean, they obviously do think the world owes them a living. Literally, the world does give them a living. I mean, even the Hungarian government gives them money to live on. So here is El País. That basically they say that Europeans, are pressuring Ukraine to take back these people, and so Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic.
Oh, so George, you speak Portuguese too?
No, I certainly don't. I get that.
Actually, because it's a Latin language. I mean, I could figure that out by that.
Yeah, that's right. It's not. That's right. It's not that difficult. So Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic have signaled to Ukraine this fall that it must stem the flow of refugees from its borders into Europe. These three countries have received the most Ukrainian citizens since the start of the Russian invasion. Each country has cited different reasons, but all have made it clear to Kiev that the situation is reaching a breaking point. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz asked President Zelensky on November the 13th to stem the exodus of young men arriving in his country. I have asked the Ukrainian president to ensure that young men from Ukraine do not arrive in Germany in ever-increasing numbers, Merz explained. These people are better off serving in their own country. They are needed there.
It's such a great accent. I have echoes of Hogan's Heroes. Okay.
That's right. The European Commission reiterated this December that applications from Ukrainian refugees have skyrocketed this autumn to levels not seen since 2023. The reason, according to Brussels, is Zelensky's decree that came into effect in August and authorizes men between the ages of 18 and 22 to cross the border. Until now, men in that age group were prohibited from leaving the country while martial law was in effect. The president's intention in lifting the ban was to allow this group to travel abroad for higher education, but the result has been an exodus of young men seeking to avoid conscription, making a very rational choice.
Rational choice, and who is most likely will never return to Ukraine.
Yes, unless they get kicked out.
Unless they get kicked out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then statistics from the European Commission indicate that while the number of women with refugee status fell by 7% in October, the number of men increased by over 6%. And Germany is the preferred destination for young people due to the aid Berlin provides to those displaced by the war. And then since August, the number of Ukrainian men registering in Germany has increased tenfold.
Wow.
Yeah, Germany is also the country that has received the most Ukrainian refugees in Europe, 1.2 million. Poland follows with almost 1 million, and although the total number of Ukrainians there rises to almost 1.6 million if the pre-war population is included. And then Polish nationalism, represented by its president, Karol Nawrocki, considers Ukrainian migration excessive. But this is a classic because hey, you got to go fight. You got to go down to the front. But of course, this should apply to the Europeans. You should tell Merz wants this war to continue. No, you go to the front. I mean, even if you're too old and decrepit to be able to fight yourself, there's always things to do. In the back lines. You can make some coffee, prepare some food, do some administrative work. There's things you can do on the front lines. So anyone who's going around sending others to fight, should be absolutely ready to go, pick up a rifle, go do the fighting
Well,
yourself.
it says a lot about the lack of morality of these European elites. I mean, we're paying for it.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll pay for
right,
your military service. And what I mean, we're being really noble here. I mean, that's how vacuous their sense of values are.
right.
I mean, it's perverse. I mean, everything about these elites are perverse. Okay, maybe they'll have a meeting in Berlin about it. Okay.
That's right. Well, but that's it. Look, I mean, yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but a comment here. Most Ukrainians fled to Russia. I don't think it was most, but a lot did.
yeah,
A
that's right.
lot did.
Yeah,
And I can remember the start of the special military operation. A lot of these people came from the Donbass, by the way, and there were
right,
others. You know what? How they fit into Russian society? Seamlessly,
right.
seamlessly. No
Yes,
anti-Ukrainian sentiment here at all. Okay,
yep,
they were
yep.
welcomed here. Okay, so yeah, I'm really glad our viewer pointed that out because I think it. I mean, I knew the number like 2 years ago was like 1.2, 1.3 million Ukrainians fled Ukraine to come to
Yes,
Russia. Okay,
yes. But you, again, you have to. You say this is absolutely a perfectly rational choice that they make. I mean,
yeah,
you're in your 20, twenties, even your 30s, 40s, 50s. This is a stupid war, and it's being pushed by people who are not themselves prepared to risk their own lives. All of the sunshine warriors on Twitter. Trump is selling out Ukraine. Let's give everything, get frozen assets, give everything to Ukraine. We're going to send more and more to Ukraine. But you're not prepared to do any fighting yourself. So anytime any of these creeps, including Andrew Neil and all the rest, who are always advocating war, but they never do it themselves. And so, hey, these 18, 20-year-old Ukrainians, they should be on the front line getting their heads
yeah.
blown.
Lady Graham, they have female uniforms. Go for it, dude. Maybe they have one in pink. Maybe, have a choice. Who knows?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's always something you can do. Even if you're too fat and too useless to do anything on the front lines,
Too
there's
stupid
things you can do behind the lines.
like Lady Graham, she could do something. She could be, maybe be a latrine duty. I think that would be suitable.
Latrine duty, yeah, absolutely. To sew buttons on uniforms. There's always something to do.
Maybe manicure. Who knows?
Exactly.
If George and I are given a chance, we could go on for hours insulting Lindsey Graham, and I would do it with great pleasure. Okay.
That's right. Anyway, let's take a look at the
I
gag.
send Ursula von der Leyen to the front line. What is she going to do? Be a beautician?
Yeah,
Quaffing hair?
yeah, yeah.
How much does the commissions pay on her makeup a day? I want to know. It's like $10,000. Who knows?
I'm sure. Yeah, and the clothes. She has a nice wardrobe, and Kaya Kallas has a very nice wardrobe. She's always wearing something different every day. Always a very nice outfit. I mean, that looks quite expensive. Everything Kaya Kallas wears always looks quite expensive. That's not just off the rack.
I think that's her entire office budget goes to her presentation.
The presentation, yeah, and the hair's always perfectly coiffed. I mean, yeah, no, that's a lot of EU money. That's
Well, I know. Mertz has money spent on his. He has a big budget
he has a
at
yes,
the
that's
Rice
right. And he's a rich man himself. He's a very wealthy man
Oh,
himself.
this is the rich people never pay for anything. You know that.
That's right. Anyway, so let's look at the gagglers. The people who make sure that Buddy's in a reasonable mood. And so Stone River, welcome Stone River. Thank you so much for your generosity. Stone River says the peace president seems to have turned into the global bully. Yet another illustration of Lord Acton's point. About power corrupting and absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. So yes, that there's no question. But I think we're still a little puzzled exactly why he has done this, because there's no real political mileage for him. I mean, you can say, okay, power has corrupted me, but at least I'm getting some mileage out of this. But I haven't seen what this whole Venezuela thing. It's not popular, and if he does starts launching military attacks, it's not going to deliver. Maduro is not going to go just because the country is being bombed. So, and politically, it's just unpopular. He's sinking in the polls, and clearly
Well,
sinking in the
also,
polls
George,
because he's paying so much attention to these foreign policy matters.
are fentanyl deaths going down in the United States?
Right.
Oh,
Right.
that's right. It's not about fentanyl anymore. Did you notice that? Like from one evening to the next morning, they had a completely different narrative.
Right. Yeah, that's
They're
right.
not talking about it anymore. Are they? Is there fentanyl on these oil tankers?
I don't think so. And they suddenly raised the issue of the oil, which is always very interesting, because they somehow took our oil, which is a new one. No one has ever thought that the oil in Venezuela somehow belongs to the United States. And then, if there are corporations, I mean, are there corporations, saying, hey, we want some compensation? I mean, all that has been already arbitrated. I mean, all that has already been dealt in the courts of this issue of, when they partially nationalize the oil companies.
And extraction doesn't mean it's your oil. You have a concession to extract.
Right.
You don't have when you're given the concession. It's not your oil. You can extract the oil.
Right. So it was very, very odd, because whatever it was done under Chavez, well, similar things have been done in the Arab world. I mean, the Saudis also kind of nationalized, sort of, not wholly nationalized, but also they took over some of Aramco's interests. So America has lived with that. So suddenly Trump has brought that up. What Chavez did 20 years ago. Well, that's a new one. I mean, all this time you've been saying that this guy, first he's a communist, then he's a drug dealer. Now we're going back to 20 years about some grievance done by somebody who wasn't even Maduro who did this.
He's a petroleum thief.
The petroleum thief.
It's all bonkers. And George almost always gets it in the first sentence. What is Trump getting out of what's the mileage? What's the upside out of it? I don't see any.
Right.
Except for the Miami mafia, that their designs on the Western Hemisphere. It's a wet dream for them. We got somebody in the White House to let us do this stuff. Really? Oh my God!
Right. Yeah.
I think that is part of it. I think that they see the Marco Rubios, the Miami mafia. They see this. Look, we may never get this chance again.
Yeah, no, I think it's right. But the interesting thing here is that, is precisely what Stone River says. Trump's still claiming to be the peace president, and yet nothing that he does is further, with the exception of Ukraine. You can say at least I think he wants to bring that to an end. Hasn't done it effectively, but in other cases, I mean, he's exacerbating things. I mean, if it's quite likely to be true, and I'm sure NBC has got quite good sources, that Netanyahu is going to come next week and ask for a joint partnership to attack Iran. Well, we'll see what happens. But I mean, there's a reason why Netanyahu comes here, because he thinks he can roll Trump, and there's a reason why. Tel Aviv Levin puts his arm around him and he says he loves Israel. He loves Israel.
We talked about this yesterday, everyone. When Mark Levin puts his arm around you, that's assault. Okay, and he assaulted the president of the United States. We're not fanboys for Trump here. Don't misunderstand it. But that was one of the most disturbing images coming out of the White House in a very long time.
Well, okay. That's right, and that's the thing. Security does not permit anyone to touch the president. I mean, it's just because anything could happen. I mean, it's absolute security. Nobody touches the president. You don't put your arm around it. You don't put your hand on his shoulder or anything like that. So, I don't know. I mean, the security people there, they must have been really having palpitations when they saw that somebody's just putting like a bear hug or a kind of an arm lock around the president.
Yeah, it was more like an arm lock. It's we own you. That's what when he put his arm. We own you.
Right. That's right. That's right. That was, I mean, with Putin, there was some incident some years ago. Somebody was getting friendly with him, and I think he put his sort of hand on his shoulder, and immediately the security people
Well,
rushed in, and then
I
Putin
have
kind of waved them away. But all he did was just put his hand on his shoulder, and boom, the security people.
Michael Flynn is back in the news. Okay, he's saying that the CIA is sabotaging Trump. Well, I met Michael Flynn in 2016 at the famous RT dinner, and there were awards being given out, and presenters like myself, we were on the stage and all of that. And there was a South American presenter, and she had just been visiting because she did her program in her home country. And so we were getting off the stage. Right off to the right is the big Putin table with Jill Stein and Mike Flynn and all of that. And she said, "I want to talk to him." And I just said, and she just went straight to him. And everyone, it was like clockwork. All of a sudden, he was surrounded. It happened in a blink of an eye. They were all there. Their security was all, you didn't see them. And then all of a sudden they were activated and encircled. And Putin went like, "Oh, it's okay."
Exactly.
The woman like 4 feet 6 inches. A tiny woman, okay. But George is right. I mean, the security, they are always awake. Boom, they put a barrier all around him.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's right. Anyway, let's go on with the comments. So thank you so much, Stone River. It says, "Happy holidays" is so insipid and it's not even accurate. Yeah, we talked about it earlier, and I agree with you, but Peter doesn't. So,
what do I don't agree with?
Well, that happy because I think you said you weren't happy. You didn't have any problems with saying "Happy Holidays."
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah, Stone River says "Happy Holidays" is so insipid, which I tend to think, but Okay, and then Real Peter Nolan says Nick is a great role model for young men and boys. That was I think that's Nick Fuentes. Is he a great role model? I don't know. I guess let's think about.
No. I mean, there's been a there was the Jordan Peterson moment. Okay. And he became two-faced, and he has serious health problems again, apparently. So he's kind of disappeared. Then we had the Tate brothers, which they're intentionally obnoxious misogynists. Okay. The Tate brothers are more they're a reflection of the zeitgeist of the dissatisfaction. Okay. They're a spectacle to observe. Okay. Because they break every taboo. All right. And Nick Fuentes, he is just a smooth operator. Okay. Is he? I'm not a young man, so I'm not the person to ask if he's a role model for young men. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
in the comments here, Fuentes is an idiot. That's one version of him too. Okay. I don't disagree with that statement. Okay. But what I'm saying, he's a very complicated person. Okay. And that's why he's actually quite rich and very successful.
Well, no, I agree. And so, I mean, in that sense, he's a role model. Yeah, he's a young man who's figured out how to make a great deal of money at a very early age without going through the whole rigmarole, formal education. I think, I mean, I know he didn't finish his college studies, but I'm not even sure whether he started in college or whatever, but he certainly didn't get a degree. But he made a lot of money. Same with Charlie Kirk. Also, he never finished university, but made a ton of money. And other people have done that. Bill Gates also didn't finish university.
Speaking about idiots, Portnoy is an idiot. Okay, his hypocrisy is suffocating. Yes,
absolutely. Anyway, Cynthia, always very good to see you, Cynthia. So Cynthia says, why would Trump embrace and expand the use of cryptocurrencies, given that doing so will likely encourage nations under U.S. sanctions to use non-Western forms of cryptocurrencies in order to circumvent those sanctions? What Trump is doing with regard to his self-imposed sanction regime is so overreaching that it's bound to become self-defeating. At least that's how I see it. That's a good question. Why do you think he's doing this crypto? Is that just because there's money in it for
Yeah,
Trump.
your instinct is right, George.
Yeah, because
He wants. Look. You look at Jared Kushner, his sons, Witkoff, his family. They're all becoming extremely rich during this administration. And, Alistair Crook has a very interesting piece out over the weekend that Trump is really actually more interested in making money with the Arabs than anything else.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, and I think that that's where he's going to make money. I think in the case of the sort of American Zionists, I think he's more afraid of their political power, rather than he's going to make a lot of money through them, because they don't give you money. These people are very good at hoarding money for themselves. So, but the Arabs, they give you money. They you can have joint projects with them. They have a lot of money. They're actually generous with their money. Bill Ackman is not generous. You're not going to get anything from him.
It also says a lot about every single president is obsessed with legacy, and I think Trump is no different. Except for he wants his legacy to be, when I leave, my family will be richer than when I started. See, that's legacy he thinks about.
That's right. I think so.
Just to be really crude, becoming president of the United States is a great way to elevate your financial profile.
No, I'm sure his sons are very happy. I mean, they're obviously they're now running the company, and Trump is getting on a bit, and I'm sure they're already getting ready of in the post-Trump world, they're going to be running the company and making a lot of money.
I wonder if they're going to have a Trump version of Succession. I don't know if you saw that series.
No, I never. I read about it, but I never saw it.
It's actually quite good. It's actually very good. I really like it a lot.
And anyway, Cynthia then goes on and says, after the U.S. seizes a sanctioned cargo ship, the cargo is sold and the proceeds go to the government funds, i.e. U.S. victims of state-sponsored terrorism fund, and the ship itself is sold at auction. But nothing about these funds or the auctioning of the ship is made public. So how do we know Trump and his friends, plus the ones from Israel, aren't profiting from the seizing of cargo ships? After all, he makes no secret that all of his White House deal makings are entirely motivated by money. Well, the one thing I would say, though, that Trump himself doesn't take a salary. He is certainly thinking about his legacy, his business in the future, but he's not taking a salary. He didn't during his first term, and he's not taking a salary now. So, I don't think he's getting any money out of this. But it's obviously wholly wrong and thievery. Whoever takes this money, same with when governments fine people for this, that, and the other. You think, hey, that's all money going to the government. That shows it's just a way of appropriating funds from the private sector into government. So it's looting, it's theft. But I don't think out of this, I don't think Trump is directly benefiting. So,
well, the cynic in me, he probably has a proxy. Make sure I get my cut. I'm being facetious, everyone.
Right. Anyway, and then Cynthia says, and given that making money is all important to Trump, why doesn't he seize the alleged narco boats, take all the assets on board the boats, including the boats themselves, and sell them all for hard cash? That's a very good question. To him, blowing up boats ought to be akin to blowing up money. So why does he go against money-making instinct in this particular case, but not in the case of the cargo ships? He should at least arrest and publicly try the narco traffickers in order to restore confidence in his MAGA base.
Yeah, George and I have talked about trials and all of that. I mean, I think for Trump, seeing a boat blow up is far more, the visual is so much more powerful for him and many of his followers. Okay, a trial, you got to get lawyers.
A trial, yes, that's true. And trials are also very tricky because, you got some quite smart lawyers who are going to say this.
Well, particularly since what the administration is doing is absolutely illegal. Okay.
Exactly, and absolutely right. So, there's always a good chance that you're going to get off. I mean, it's like I remember there was always this thing about Osama bin Laden. Oh well, they should have seized Osama bin Laden, taken him to
Yeah,
trial.
we've talked about this.
You know,
Yeah,
yeah, bin Laden. You know, if there had been a trial, he would have probably got off because they would probably have had no real evidence linking him to the 9/11 attacks. So, I mean, since once the government had made this, said, oh, he was the one who was responsible for 9/11, then obviously you're not going to put him on trial because I am quite sure they're not going to be able to find any kind of direct link between him and the attack. So you might as well just kill him. And the secret lies dead with him.
Saddam Hussein was involved in it. Oh, he's dead too. Okay.
Yeah, he's dead too. And they did have a trial for Saddam Hussein, a joke of a trial, but they didn't. That wasn't one of any of the charges. So it was actually it was a very narrow case that the Iraqis brought against Saddam Hussein, but 9/11 and none of that was ever involved.
I found it very curious that instead of having a trial, they gave him a Muslim burial at sea, which I have no idea what that means. Okay,
very strange because
but it was very important that they said, but he had a proper burial at sea.
Very, very odd because you thought, isn't sort of Mohammedanism, that's a desert religion, and get burial at sea. That doesn't sound right.
Doesn't sound right.
Anyway, thank you so much, Cynthia. It was always for your generosity, and then,
always the best question. Always the best questions.
Exactly, always. Yeah, it really makes us think. And then Psinok says, "Thank you for all you do. Thank you so much. Haven't been able to listen live due to work. Something for the dogs." And I think that the dogs, I hope they'll be grateful. But thank you, Psinok. And then here's another question. This is from Summer Petros. Always very good to see you here. Summer Petros, speaks fluent Hungarian. Very, very impressive. As Summer Petros says, George, you highlighted that UK governments are always cracking down on something. This, that, and everything. It started under Tony Blair. Might be insightful if someone could compile a list of all these various crackdowns. I agree. I mean that it's
we could call it the anti-Magna Carta list. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when Liz Truss, who was the shortest,
one of our old favorites. Yeah,
exactly. Now that she's reinvented herself as a populist, and now she has a platform with MAGA and everything. She's now a MAGA person. But when she first was doing this whole reinventing herself, she tried to pose as a libertarian. This is a person, the last thing you would ever describe her as is a libertarian. And then she came along on one of these conferences, and right away, she started, we got to crack down on this, we got to crack down on that. All her instincts immediately came to the fore. Yeah. Particularly, when anyone expressing any views critical of Israel. Yeah, we got to crack down on that. And, absolutely crack down this, crack down on that. It's her natural instinct. You just crack.
Yeah, I always when I hear people talk that way, I think of the German scientist in Peter Sellers playing Dr. Strangelove. Every time we have to crack down, I always see that character in my mind.
That's right. And it's quite appropriate because that's exactly how the Germans are today. They made this whole pretense all these years. We've really now embraced the idea of individual liberty, free speech. Freedom of the media. Boom! Right away. Hey, we got to crack down.
This need to crack that window. Get that Overton window open, and they'll blast their way through. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah, George and we've watched this in our life. Watched this alleged evolution. Apparently now.
That's right.
Okay, it's remarkable. I think we should do a separate podcast about. And we've talked about it at great length already, but there's something going on there, and it's not.
Right. It's not good. It's not good. And then because of freedom of information does not mean freedom of disinformation. Okay, so that's it. And that's always the excuse when anyone who wants to crack down is, it's disinformation. I mean, we can't allow
See,
false
one of the
information to be presented.
See, this is a cultural misunderstanding because in the Anglo-Saxon world, cracking down, it's essentially a bad thing. But when the Germans say crack down, finally we get to crack down. Yes, yes. Misco's crack down days.
That's right, exactly. We got to crack down. Yes,
Made Germany great.
That's right. But the point is that we said about Peter Sellers. How did Peter Sellers had to control himself? You are right, mein Führer. I mean, Mr. President. Mein Führer. I mean, Mr. President.
So brilliant. Okay. They wanted him to play the pilot, in that film.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Everyone, real quick, because we're running out of. Why was Peter Sellers in a wheelchair when he was playing the German scientist? Why? Because Kubrick was trying to convince Peter Sellers to play the part of the pilot, and they were in the cockpit of the makeup plane, which was elevated, okay? And Peter Sellers was so exasperated playing another role that he climbed out of the cockpit and he fell and he injured his leg or hip or something like that. And so he had to be wheeled around. And then it was Peter Sellers' idea, I'm going to do the role in the wheelchair. True story.
But he played that group captain, I think, Mandrake. So
yeah, but he wanted him to be the pilot also. Yeah. It was Slim Pickens.
That's a Slim Pickens. But he was very good. Slim Pickens was very good.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, that film is perfect for me. That is one of the perfect films.
Exactly. Anyway, our time is indeed up. Thank you very much, everybody who joined us. Thank you for your generosity. Really appreciate it, and very much in the Christmas spirit. We wish you a very happy Christmas, and all the greetings of the season. We will be back next Monday. It'll be already past Christmas. So thank you, and all the best. Bye-bye.